Storytellers Cafe. It's my pleasure to invite you all. Welcome back, as I said, to Storytellers Cafe, the number one storytelling podcast show on Bharat FM, which is a Cincinnati based radio station. Thank you for making this commitment every week, sometimes every other week, to listen, learn, enjoy. Thank you for choosing to listen to Storytellers Cafe. I enjoy these episodes as much as you do, as I get to sit down with fellow friends, storytellers, mentors, and share with you the wealth of insights, wisdom, and life experiences my guests share. Now, you know that I'm always trying to discover new storytellers, fascinating people who are doing so much in their life through their experience, work, and what they have achieved. Today, I present before you one of such a wonderful storyteller, a scientist, my mentor, whom I have been planning to get onto the studios for a very long time. And on the occasion of Earth Day, which falls on Friday, the 22nd of April, I'm very happy to present to you Dr. A.P. Jayaraman. Now, let me give you a little introduction about Earth Day. Stories provide an appealing way to slip ideas in under the radar of people who fear or distrust science, as well as a time tested way to teach. Learn to use the same story elements that work in time tested folk tales to craft eco science information into fact tales that can make complicated ideas easy to remember and help listeners see meaning in masses of facts while sharing your love of nature. So, like I said, my friends, on the occasion of Earth Day, I'm very proud to have as my guest Dr. A.P. Jayaraman. Let me introduce Dr. A.P. Jayaraman to those 2% of the audience who do not know about Dr. A.P. Jayaraman. Dr. Jayaraman worked as a nuclear scientist for 40 years, but for the last 55 years, he is a science communicator in English and Malayalam. We will understand what or who is a science communicator from him. He was the chairman of the National Science for Science Communicators. He is, rather, and the president of STEAM Academy. He serves on the scientific committee of PCST Global Network and has widely traveled across the world for professional assignments. Dr. Jayaraman has received several state, national, and international honors and awards in recognition of his work in science communication. For the last 55 years, he has been a passionate science communicator. He has authored 25 books, including a chemistry textbook, scripted over 5,000 science articles, and delivered around 60,000 hours of science technology and management discourse. Dr. Jayaraman is both fluent in English and Malayalam. He, along with Professor Sivadas, is a co creator of the genre of creative science literature for children. He has interacted with top Indian and foreign scientists, to name a few: Dr. Homi Bhabha, Vikram Sarabhai, M.G.K. Menon, our erstwhile President, His Excellency A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, Dr. Chidambaram, and Dr. Anil Kakodkar. After retirement, Dr. Jayaraman did not believe in resting on his laurels. He served as a professor of environmental engineering at Singapore and later as dean of a business school in Kerala. Presently, Dr. Jayaraman is in the academic councils of several universities, engineering colleges, and management institutes. Dr. Jayaraman is my mentor, and He was instrumental in my showcasing the first ever science storytelling festival for children aged 4 to 14 years in the year 2019. Let me bring Dr. A.P. Jayaraman on to the studio. Dr. Jayaraman, welcome and namaskaram. It's a pleasure to have you in our studios, Dr. Jayaraman.
Thank you. Thank you. Very delightful.
So, Dr. Jairaman, there are a lot of things that I have left unsaid at your request. I mean, your achievements, I mean, the kind of work that you've been doing, not only in India and across the world, the panel discussions, the talks. We would like you to share that with our audience today. As you see, many of the storytellers are venturing into science storytelling today, STEAM storytelling or stream storytelling to uh, as it's known today. So Dr. Jaraman, I would like to ask you first, tell us a little bit about your trajectory from a scientist, a nuclear scientist, to a science communicator who tells stories. How did this happen?
Ushaji, you have asked me the most difficult and complex question. I must tell you that storytelling is not the job specification of a scientist. In fact, if I write in my CV that I am a storyteller, I am least likely to be accepted for an official assignment. So I am an anti storyteller in that sense of the term. What I reveal, I have to conceal, so I use my spare time for storytelling. This morning, you used an expression. Actually, you coined an expression, fact tale. I heard that from you, and I enjoyed that coinage because fact tale is one aspect of storytelling and science storytelling. I remember way back in 1970 creating my first science story. This is what I call the Yuri Gagarin effect. 1961, Yuri Gagarin has soared into the space and created the space revolution. The entire educational community was throbbing with vibrant energy. Something is happening in space, something is happening around us. So there was a euphoria about science, and the Soviet Union underwent a renaissance in science communication. A lot of books on popular science and science stories, space stories came in huge numbers, multiplying maddeningly. At that time, one of my mentors was in Soviet Union at that time for 5 years. He was participant and witness to this renaissance in Soviet Union. Dr. M.P. Parameswaran, the father of people's science movement in this country, a nuclear engineer, 10 years senior to me in the department. He absorbed, assimilated the best of science communication in the Soviet Union, came to India, to Bombay, and then told us, let 100 flowers bloom. I want 100 people with me to create science stories. And I am one of the 100 flowers or buds at that time in the 1970, early 70, to start this small step forward. And the first story I wrote was on gas chromatograph, an analytical instrument which explained to the students how our nose works. The smell and flavor and fragrance which we get is captured better than by our nose than a physical nose, which we call the gas chromatograph. That was the first story I tried my hands on. Then there has never been looking back. That's a brief introduction to my science storytelling career.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaraman. As I can see, you're a man of few words. So I will now have the difficult task of getting more stories from you. This is wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman, what you said about fact tales. So, can you tell us about the STEAM Academy that you set up and also the Science Communicator? Also that organization which does tremendous job, because I've been following you the last 4 to 5 years when I got to know you late 2018, and you had this wonderful science storytelling festival at the Nehru Science Center, um, and where I participated, and in some small way, I contributed towards that. So, can you tell us about the history of the STEAM Academy as well as the Science Communicator Academy that you set up?
I very distinctly and vividly recall your presentation of the story at the Nehru Science Center, which went into a rapturous applause from the audience because it was distinct, it was unique. And in the science story, this stood out separately, and there was a beauty about that story. And I appreciate that, and I still remember that event. Now, the word steam, I have a romantic fascination with the word steam because steam, that is water in its vapor state, is the prime mover for the industrial revolution. There had been no industrial revolution had there been no taming of the steam. So that is our conceptual understanding about STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. Now you may wonder, what is this arts coming in between science, technology, engineering, and maths? That is the glue which holds those separate silos. So we thought we should bring in arts, the fine art of blending these immiscible solids. I would call them immiscible solids. So science on one side, and the daughter product of science, that is technology, and then we have engineering, and we have mathematics. Now they are woven into a fine fabric, but that fabric is arts. So we started looking at literature, we looking at arts, architecture, everything from the scientific point of view, and we found more science there than in pure science itself. And the best way to understand, for example, the understanding the science of Shakespeare, understanding the science which was prevalent at the time of Newton. So we started looking at literature. Even today, in these COVID times, we are flooded with the data. We have a huge amount, enormous explosion of data. But if you read Albert Camus' book, The Plague, then you will get an understanding, a better appreciation of interpreting, analyzing, and synthesizing your data into a fine story. So building stories, coherent, cogent, understandable, intelligible, that is what we are at. And science storytelling, the STEAM, we started going to museums. We went to Pennsylvania Museum, took one object, a drum. Taking a drum called the Lukumbi drum from Pennsylvania University, the curator told us how to use a drum, the Lukumbi drum. Then we took a drum, a chanda from Kerala, and asked 8th standard students to beat the chanda as they like it. Compare the Lukumbi drum and the chanda, and then we teach 8th standard sound for students of 8th standard CBSE class. Now remember, chanda of Kerala, the Lugumbi drum of Pennsylvania State University Museum, they are blended together. The arts that brought us to science. What is frequency? What is sound? Sir C.V. work on that. So to the classroom, we brought extra classroom affairs. That is one of the remarkable features which STEAM Academy is currently prosecuting.
Wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman. I wanted to also talk to you since Earth Day is on April 22nd, and there is a global climate crisis, and everyone is becoming environmentally conscious. Not everyone, some people are open to it, but what can lay person do about bringing a change in the environment and not contribute more carbon footprint? How can one do that? Could you tell us about that?
Oh, yes. In fact, that is the sharpest question you have asked, most contemporary, most relevant for the Earth Day. I think we should narrate a small story for our children on Earth, just to put Earth in perspective. They should understand where we live, what we should do, and what we should not do, as you rightly pointed out, the warming and the climate change. So, if you will allow me, I'll use 2 or 3 slides and just focus on a vast expanse of the Earth and come to the point which you raised, the climate change, what we should not do. So, can I have my first slide, please?
Yes, Dr. Jayaraman, sure.
Yeah, it is better to start in a story mode, an artificial synthetic story mode, in an autobiographical story mode, and tell the students This is the earth. I am the earth. I am the mother earth. I am happy and I am proud and I am delighted. You are marking my day. And it is an honor for me, but it is equally an honor for you. If you look at me, if you try to understand how I look to you, you would have seen the globe in your classroom, quite round. But you will also find that some people say, no, no, it's not round and globular and all that. It is flat. It's flat like a chapati or flat like a dosha. So there are people who believe that I am not round, I am flat. They are called flat earthers. They have their own strong opinions. They have strong convictions why the earth is not round. But if you take a flight and travel around the globe, you will find that it is round. So please remember, in your very young class, you will know that I am round. Then you may wonder, am I perfect sphere? Absolutely perfect, which your geometry teacher asks you to understand? Not exactly. I am in a sphere from a distance, but actually, if you take me and press from top and bottom, I'll bulge a little. That bulged shape is my real shape. Let geologists and let astronomers worry about my exact shape correct to the final decimal. Remember, I am round, a little flattened, and that's how I look like. But I am not flat. I am not at all flat like the dosa. I am not at all flat like the chapati. I am round, spheroid, or oblate if you want to be technically accurate. That's how I look like. Now, next question I would like is how I look is appearances are very interesting, and I have a very attractive appearance which is spheroidal. But when was I born? My date of birth is of great interest. Can I just have my next slide, Ushaji?
Sure.
Oh yeah, this is the Big Bang, the great explosion. Long, long ago, in ancient times, in days of yore, in antiquity, when there was no time, there was a time when there was no time, and that was my birth time. That is when the universe was born. And to be exactly accurate, scientists, they do their calculations and they have found out that it is 13.8 billion years ago. 13.8 billion years. Does it make any sense to you? So you write 138 and 8 zeros. 138 and 8 zeros, and look at that number. That's the number of years that have passed as the universe was born. That is called from a single point. A point is some which has no part, a partless point of mass and energy in its most concentrated dense form. Boom! It went up. Nobody heard the sound because there was nobody. So it was silent. And the moment I was born, the universe was born, it started expanding, it started spreading around everywhere. And that universe is still expanding. So after some time, the hot nebulae gases they traveled, wandered aimlessly through the space. They through galaxies, and out of that a small space called the solar system was born. There was a sun in, and around the sun I am revolving. That's what my date of birth is. Now, can I go to my next one, please?
Yes, Dr.
The next
Jayaraman.
slide, yes. That shows the great minds who have thought about me. We have Copernicus, Galileo, Tycho Brahe, Newton. Those were the greatest, beautiful minds of our history. All of them thought about me, how proud and privileged I am to be thought of by the great minds of my time. And Galileo said, I move, a persimoi, he said. When he was challenged, he was persecuted, and he was harassed, still he said in small, silent voice of reason, still it moves. Yes, I am moving. Not only I am moving, I have two types of motion. I revolve, I have a revolution, I revolve around the sun, and I make your year. I take around 365 days to make one prediction of the sun. And I also, that makes your year. But I make your dawn and dusk. That's very important for you. Otherwise, you'll be all learning at one time without any stop. So I have the day maker and the night maker for you. And that I do by rotation on my own axis. So I have a revolution and I have a rotation that makes your life comfortable. That's me. Next. Please, Ushaji. Oh yeah, what am I made up of? We are all made up of something. Nothing, you cannot have nothing with us. There is something with us. That something, the most elementary, most fundamental, most basic stuff is called elements. L-M-N, elements. And we know today there are 118 elements in the whole universe. And here, the stuff with which I am made as Earth is 90 elements. These 90 elements make up all that I am. But earlier, much before when science was its infancy, was a fueling arm in the hands of scientists, they thought that there were only 5 elements: air, fire, earth, water, and ether. But today, scientists have discovered 108. That's another story. That's actually 118 elements stories. I will, if I get time, I'll tell you a short view of that. So I am made up of elements. And these elements can be put nicely in your table and you can mug it up in your classroom. And if you do your periodic table well, you will score very high in your marks. Ushaji, can we move to the next small
Yes.
slide?
Yes.
Probably I have an insight. Right in my, at the centermost portion, I have a core. That core is made up of two strong metals, iron and nickel. Now, this iron and nickel is the core with which I am made. Around that, I have got mantle and I have got a crust. So that's the 3 layers of it. And I just want to remember, when you see a bird flying, remember it is the magnet in my heart that makes the bird travel in the direction it wants. So there are a number of ways in which I interact with the living things. In fact, you all live just because I am here. If I'm not here, you can't think of life. Can we move next one? Ushaji, probably the most important one which you raised. Yes, this is the issue Ushaji has raised. There is global warming. There is climate change. What should you do? What should you not do? See, we all breathe in and breathe out. We have an atmosphere. In the atmosphere, we have nitrogen and oxygen. We take in oxygen. Then, when we exhale, when we breathe out, a little carbon dioxide goes out. That's what we do. And every human being is a 100-watt thermal machine. I'm a 100-watt thermal machine. I produce heat and I give out carbon dioxide. Of course, your cars and your other vehicles, they give huge amount. Your electricity producing plants with coal, or your petrol using car, they all give out a huge amount of carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide in our air has been increasing. This is causing us concern. And if this goes on increasing like this, the atmosphere will heat up and we will suffer the consequences of heat. Right now, today, we have 418 parts per million of carbon dioxide in our air. So we should remove this carbon dioxide, decarbonization. And that is what we are trying to do. I remember, along with my friends, 2 years ago, we started a small experiment in Kerala. We wanted to plant 5 crore jackfruit trees in 5 years in Kerala. Why? To capture carbon dioxide. So we started planting jackfruit trees, 5 crores trees in 5 years. And what will you get? You'll get jackfruit. Most people like jackfruit. Of course, some people may not like it, like the durian. Some people like durian most. Some people do not like that. But jackfruit, I tell you, to me, it's a delicacy. And I was part of this program, and it was by a big environmentalist, Professor M.K. Prasad, who said, this is the best way we will do carbon capture. And carbon capture in a meaningful and wonderful way by converting carbon dioxide into jackfruit. So that was a mission which we started, our small, humble contribution to the capture of carbon from our environment. That then is a small story, but a school teacher can convert each part or segment of the story. And I think Ushaji will convert each one into at least some 20 stories of captivating attraction in her own specific individualistic style of capturing the attention of the students, science stories give you enormous amount of information. It's a fertile soil where imagination can bloom into luxuriant growth.
Yes, Dr. Jayaraman. In fact, we have to re-embrace our ancient stories for modern times. And that's what storytellers and a few of us do that. And how do we contemporize it and bring it to today's relevant millennials so that they can understand? So wonderful. Dr. Jayaraman, do you want to play more slides or shall I just take it off the screen right now?
These slides are over. Yes. Now I may need, if you want a story on science, I'll have to go for another 4 or 5 slides.
Yes, Dr. Jayaraman, we
Yeah,
would love
at that
to.
time we can. Yeah.
Yes. For us, the USP of Storytellers Cafe is to listen to stories, and nothing more captivating than a science story, and so well told. I mean, I've been riveted to your storytelling and sharing the facts, and also talking on first name basis as I am Earth and doing it. What a beautiful way that you conveyed the facts to us. Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Jaraman, there are many questions that I would like to ask, but definitely we can take a small little intervention here through a story. Do you need me to get the share the screen again?
Oh yeah, we can have a review of the story called Royal Pooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a story which we have written with the basic objective of teaching what is the scientific method. Now, if you go to a classroom and tell a story about what science is and what is the scientific method, I think it will be the dullest and the most boring aspect. So we started with a small story. I will just give you a synopsis of the story. There is a pride of lions in a forest. Early morning, they defecated, and Royal Poo was available. There was a vulture on top of a tree. The vulture saw the Royal Poo. It immediately flew and cleared the place. And there was no trace of the Royal Poo of this pride of lions. After some time, wherever the lion is there, there are some scavengers, and that is called the wolves and the foxes and so on. They also defecated. Their poo was also available. But the vulture did not look at that. Now, here is an observation. The vulture ate lion's poo. Vulture did not eat jackal's poo. Two observations. Vulture ate lion's poo, and vulture refused to look at the jackals and hyenas poo. Why? So somebody said, oh, this is very simple. Lion is the king of animals, king of all beasts. It's the royal poo. The other one, scavengers, plebeian poo. Who will eat plebeian poo? Now, to most people, it is a satisfactory answer. Royal poo, royal poo versus plebeian poo. But then a chimpanzee, intelligent to us, he came and asked, no, this is not a scientific answer. I want a scientific answer. And he said he collected the royal poo. He also collected the wolf's poo, sent it to a pathology laboratory for testing. And he got the results. When he got the pathology results, the chimp found out there is more protein in the poo of the lion, and there is very little or no poo in the wolf's poo, in the wolf's defecation. So the chimp told everybody, look, the vulture is intelligent. It knows by its trial and error that this is a proteinaceous breakfast I am getting in the morning, and I will not eat that plebeian poo. There is nothing, all proteins are gone. That's the scientific explanation for it. Can I move to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let us remain. Now, you will ask me, why am I introducing three characters? I brought the lion, the central character, because I asked students when I was in Kerala, I asked the students to tell me stories. And I asked a number of students, almost 1,000 students, and they told me every story starts with a lion. Lion is a famous, popular character in children's stories. So I took lion as the one character. Without lion, I cannot go to children's mind. So to get entry into to open the doors of students' mind, lion is a good character. I experimented and got the result. Then I found out whom else should I use? What are the other characters? Then I thought of the chimpanzee because there are two reasons. Can I move to the next, please?
Yes.
That will give it. Yeah, I thought about chimpanzee. Chimpanzee, because there was a lady, she's called Jane Goodall. She spent 40 years studying about chimpanzees. All that we need to know about chimpanzees has been done by Jane Goodall. And I have been reading her work. And I know the behavior of chimpanzees, how intelligent they are, and their ethics. So lots of important things are there. I thought chimpanzee should be brought in as a character. Fine, fine. Then I thought, now I am bringing one more. I need an animal, which is lion has come, the chimpanzee has come. Now let me have a bird. Which bird should I use? That was my choice of character for your science story. Now I looked at Darwin, the father of evolution. Of all animals, he has taught evolution. And he said, the most disgusting bird is the vulture. My goodness. The vulture is detested and hated and abhorred by Charles Darwin. That should be the character I should bring in. So I got three characters. I got my lion, I got my chimpanzee, I got the vulture. Then I again found out how to bring them together. To bring them together, there is a branch of science which is called sociobiology. And Edward O. Wilson of the Harvard University is the father of sociobiology. He puts the behavior of groups of animals and explains to us. So I used sociobiological concepts from Edward Wilson. Then I looked at literature because Steam Academy A is there. And then I looked at Arundhati Roy's work, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness. She said all the vultures in India have died because of diclofenac usage, and she has been actively arguing that we should preserve the vultures and we should not put diclofenacs in the veterinary medicine so much. So that was the justification. The scientist should be justified when he chooses a character. So I chose those characters. Can I move to the next one, please?
Sure.
So that is the science of it. We have an observation. The lion ate the poo of the vulture ate the poo of the lion. The vulture did not eat that of the jackals. Yes. That brings us to the difference between the dog and the cat. The lion belongs to the cat family. The jackals belong to the dog family. So I asked a veterinary surgeon, what is the difference between the digestive system of a dog and a cat? And he gave me a detailed information. And that question, which why, was answered. The dog has got an intestine which is almost 4 meters long, and the cat is, that's the lion's family, has half that size. That means all the proteins will go out because it has a poor digestive tract. That's all. And if you look at the small intestine, the dog's intestine is zero point 0.6 meter, whereas that of the cat and the lion is only 0.4 meter. So it has a short intestine. There's a short, large intestine. And one more thing, the veterinarian explained to me, the food in the cat's stomach remains only for 13 hours, whereas that remains with the dog for 24 hours. Net result, the output, the poo. The poo has no protein in the case of the cat and the lion, and whereas that from the dog has nothing in. So the cat is rich and the lion's family has plenty of protein to give. This is what the our good intelligent vulture has learned. This is the scientific explanation. This is a large story and it has to be narrated in its a dramatic Usha style fashion. And then it will produce the intended dramatic effect on the students. But checked with the facts at every point of time. There should be no contradiction. Somebody should know that the intestine is 3.9 meter in the case of the dog, and it's only 1.7 meter in the case of the cat, and that is the reason why more protein is going out. So you have the facts, you have the process, and you have strung them together, and you can narrate it. And in the company of the teachers are present, they will make about 20. They are expected to make about 25 to 30 questions out of that, which will be answered by a scientist or by a doctor in the way they want it. So this is the full anatomy and physiology of a science story.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman, wonderful. Dr. Jayaraman, that brings me to the thing when I started the science festival, Sci-Fari, after, participating in your festival in early 2019. As I understand, observation, prediction, evaluation is the foundation of science. It's a systematic study through observation, experimentation. Science, by its own definition, does not give us any meaning. It just provides us with facts. Our lives gain more meaning when we tell our story. So, hence, science and storytelling are such a powerful combination because the narrative engages the mind. And just as you shared with us the Royal Pooh story, the story gave us texture, a rough surface to grasp. You also brought in characters, and then the story sparked insights so that the student is motivated to go and further research on, like you've given all these things, and that is what one aims to do. So that was really wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman. I mean, we need to, Mumbai Storyteller Society, of which I am a founder, would love to have you do a science storytelling workshop for the school teachers and storytellers. Definitely, that's on the anvil. I plan to do that. And of course, many more things in the pipeline. So, Dr. Jayaraman, moving on, is there something that you would like to
Mataji,
add?
can I intervene for a minute?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
You mentioned this science story workshop. Now, in the science story workshop, we give only the framework. Each teacher attendee will be able to create a fantastic story in her own style. The scientists only script the story and the play of imagination, the creativity component which is brought by each teacher, which is an individualistic one. That is where the story emerges in, like a butterfly. It comes out of that. It is not a single story. This is only the framework for a story. Out of this, 100 stories should come with the same facts, but in very different alluring forms. That's the beauty of it. This is not a finished product. This is only a raw material. The science story by a scientist is a raw material for the imaginative mind of the storytellers to produce it from that chrysalis, the butterfly should come out.
Well, very well said, Dr. Jaraman. Very well put as well and explained. And I'm sure all our listeners and viewers agree with this. And just for all the listeners, you're listening to Dr. A.P. Jayaraman, who's my guest on Storytellers Cafe on the wonderful occasion of Earth Day, which falls on April 22nd. And our podcast, our show, is on Sunday, the 17th of April. So definitely write to us. I will share Dr. Jayaraman's email and other social media contacts if he has. Please feel free to write to him, and he'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So, Dr. Jayaraman, like I said, I have so much to ask you. Your stint as charge of the environmental engineering department in Singapore post your retirement. If we have time, would you like to talk to us about it?
Yes, it's one of the very fascinating stories that lingers in my mind. Environment, the totality of the environment, how to keep it clean and healthy and hygienic has been is a complex problem. I looked at only one aspect of it. how to make fresh water, how to make sweet water from salt water. So for that, we have the old story of the arena, the Hamsa. It drinks milk and it separates milk and water. Our swan is a symbolic of separator. It will drink milk, and pure milk will be on one side, water will be on the other side. In technology, we have the counterpart of the swan, that is a membrane. So we use a membrane. The seawater contains about 33,000 parts per million of sodium chloride. Put some pressure, pass it through a membrane, you will get sweet water. As simple as that. Now, if you can use that and the sea, the enormous volume of water available, but removing the salt from the sea has been a challenge, and Singapore is the first country which supplied sweet water from seawater by their process. That is called the reverse osmosis process. So the Singapore Teachers Association asked me to write a story on reverse osmosis. And we wrote the RO Man, reverse osmosis man, and how this story was narrated, and it went well with the students of 7th, 8th standard or the IB schools. So that was the separation of seawater, removing salt from water, was a story on science. So I used to create stories based on environmental aspects. And in environmental, we have good environmental science. We know so many things. But science is not only knowing things, it is doing things. Science is knowing and doing things. Most people do many things without knowing. And most people know many things and don't do anything. So this dichotomy between knowing and doing has to be solved in the environment by knowing and doing together. If you know how to separate salt from water, do it and show and ask us to drink. So Singapore was the first country, and the Prime Minister drank the water, the grey water, which was converted into fresh water, and showed to the people that science is absolutely impeccable. So that is the beauty of environmental engineering when there is a political will behind it.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman. Really, it's great. So, what is? I know you've been extremely busy during the pandemic, and you also have chaired many webinars, and you are part of another webinar, a panel discussion. I think the last 2 days you've been sending. I've been seeing your posts. So, sir, can you tell us about? Uh, what has the pandemic? I mean, I don't think it stopped you in any way, but you know, anything interesting that you would like to share with our viewers?
Oh, yes, that's a very interesting observation you have made. And when you think of the pandemic, I am reminded of Shakespeare's statement: "Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, yet wears a precious jewel in his head." Sweet are the uses of adversity. Yes, sweet are the uses of adversity of the pandemic. Like the ugly toad, it wears a precious jewel in his crown. Yes, webinars. This gave us enormous global exposure. If you want to listen to a seminar in MIT, you will have to spend about 7 days' time of travel and a huge amount of money. Whereas global leaders were available. And you had the meeting of the minds of the greatest people of the time during the pandemic. It was an epidemiologist of Brazil speaking with a public hygienist of Kerala, and you moderate such a seminar. So you got the global intelligence together. That was one of the fallout of the pandemic. It increased our reach. It expanded and augmented our horizon, and we could connect professionally to people from all parts of the world. These offline seminars gave a new life, blew fresh life into webinars, and webinars became the common aspect. In fact, the number of webinars you can attend, I think 3 to 4, you can very easily attend and absorb the assimilation. The science capital of the most of the people increased enormously by this webinar situation which happened. That is one very interesting aspect of it. I should mention.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaraman. Anything else, sir? Would you like to add? I hope I'm not.
No, you have covered most of the points which we can do in a single sitting, but now we have given some sparks, and it is for people to absorb the spark and have their own chain reaction. if each one is prompted to take up one small aspect and do it in their own creative, individualistic style, then your effort has been absolutely fruitful. We are here to catalyze reactions.
Absolutely. Dr. Jayaraman, but I think there are some more things that you would like to share with us. Perhaps another story that would you like? Something like you mentioned about the earth, the story slam, something, a 3-minute story on the environment.
Okay, you are bringing into another very imaginative area. I have mentioned while I was speaking about the stuff of which we are made. We are made of such stuffs called elements. So we have. I also mentioned that we have got 118 elements, and in about 10th standard we study about 20 elements, and we don't study all the elements. So we have created a story, autobiography of 118 elements. Each element comes to the class and explains what he or she is. So we start with the hydrogen. I am hydrogen. I am in your water. I am in your body. I am in your balloon. And your birthday balloon, you can have me in that, or you can have my brother helium. So if I give you two balloons, one with me and with my brother helium, which one will you accept? And then the child will say, oh, I don't want you because if a spark comes, you will explode and then I will have a burns. So I don't like you. I don't like hydrogen balloons. I want helium balloons. Then helium will giggle and be very happy. Look, I am better than you. That time a doctor will come and say, there is a helium shortage in the world. MRI machines are closing down. Doctors are not able to find out diagnostic conditions. Helium is in short supply. Who don't use balloon for helium balloons? So the boy in the classroom takes a decision. I shall not have helium balloons for my birthday. That is a big environmental decision. So, a small conversation between the first element, hydrogen, the second element, helium, in a 2-minute conversation, 1 minute for hydrogen, 1 minute for helium. They narrate their history and then send a message. This is called a science slam. Don't give the whole of it. The whole of it will be too much, but take one aspect, a brief introduction about hydrogen and a small introduction to helium, then one aspect which is, as you said, contemporize the situation. Yes, today the hospitals have a problem of helium and the MRI machines will have to close down unless we stop wasting helium. So if you can send that message with a 4-minute science lab in your own dramatic way, that will be one of the greatest contributions. And like that for 118 elements. That means you have 118 full stories. Not only that, now there are millions of compounds, right from sodium chloride, right from hydrogen chloride, right from water, H2O. So you have an enormous fertile field where the chemistry will help you to create absolutely fantastic, explosive stories and bringing down to a contemporary crisis. So that is where science stories, science slams, the Swedish embassy was doing a science slam here. 4 minutes, 400 words, narrate a story, sell a message, market it, and leave it. So science has become very useful in that. Maybe if you want, you can use one slide so the facts don't go wrong when you get deeply immersed and diving into the creative space.
Wonderful, Dr. Jayaraman. Wonderful. We do have story slams, but you've given me an idea about science story slams, science slams. That's really wonderful. It's been such a wonderful experience and so knowledgeable, insightful to be listening to you. Share your vast knowledge, experience, and as a science communicator. So, Dr. Jayaraman, what would you like to tell the listeners, the viewers of Storytellers Cafe, as to how can they, what would you like to leave them with? And what is the future of science storytelling?
Yes, very, very fascinating question and very tempting to answer. Uh, Almost 80% of all the jobs within 5 years will be STEM based, and the highest salaries will be available for the STEM jobs. And today, girls are missing in STEM scene. I want more girls to take science, technology, engineering, and maths. And they should be able to tell the science stories and their success stories to the next generation. That is one aspect. Now, in every story is a science story if you look at it. Every story. There is a huge amount of invisible dark matter behind every statement if you care to look at it. You can look at it through a microscope. You can look at it through a periscope. You can look at it through a telescope. You will find enormous amount of science in it. Look at the science in it. Bring out the science in everyday mundane aspects. You will be living in a glorious world of intelligence and knowledge. We are living in an information economy. We are living in a knowledge economy, and we are living in an innovation economy. So transform our information into knowledge, and that knowledge into innovation, we need to have more STEAM efforts. Let us understand this philosophy and be part of current history.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaraman. Well said. And on that note, we conclude our podcast, our session with Dr. Jayaraman. If, sir, you need to add anything, please feel free before we sign off, because one session doesn't do justice to your immense, vast knowledge. And we'll definitely have you again with us. And like I said, there are a lot of ideas floating in my mind, and which I will execute, uh, which I will put into practice so that more people benefit, because it's actually very important. Like you said, the pandemic has brought the world closer, and more people are able to benefit sitting in the comfort of their homes, listening to experts speak on topics, which otherwise you wouldn't. And most of them have been also free of charge, or a nominal at a nominal fee. And that's something that we need to be grateful for. One of the, I would say, the positive notes of this pandemic has been that. Sir, we have a few more slides, so would you like me to showcase them, and could you talk to us briefly about it?
Maybe one or two if oh, that's over. I mentioned about. Oh, yeah. This is about one of my favorite stories called a nuclear masala dosha, which is there in the internet. I was very fond of dosha. And I knew the complexities of making dosha, making idli is easy. So I defined what is dosha. Dosha means you take a dough, put it in a hot plate. It makes a sound called a shake. After 40 seconds or 50 seconds, you lift it with a ladle, turn it, and put it down. You will get a second sound, which is called a shay longa. So anything which makes two sounds, do, osha. Do means two, osha means sound. This two sound maker is called dosha, and I call it dosology. Then I went one step in my own romantic way, that life is an art and fine art of making masala dosha. That is, you must have all the ingredients with you. How you put your ingredients, your educational qualifications together in your curriculum vitae and in your life. So you are a product, you are a fine masala dosa product of your life if you put your ingredients well. Then I did a TED talk on that, and I call it a dosology. That is the art and science of making a dosa, and a nuclear masala dosa, because what are spices, how nuclear energy is used in making a beautiful masala dosa. It's a series of stories strung together. So that is called dosology, or making of the nuclear masala dosa. You can see it in the YouTube in the internet.
Sure. Let me get to the next slide, the
Oh, this
penultimate.
Ushaji mentioned to you that I am bilingual and I can speak both in Malayalam and English. And I have been writing half of my stories in Malayalam. So the nuclear masala dosa was translated into Malayalam. It's called She She Atom Dosa. So there is another way of, you cannot literally translate from one language to another. You have to think in that language. The cultural nuances of a bilingual person will definitely appreciate the nuances of English language and the Malayalam language. I cannot literally lexically translate from English to Malayalam. I should be part and parcel of the living culture of the Malayalis. So I call it Sheshayatandosa and started telling stories in Malayalam on the same way with different adjectives and all. So all stories were written in English as well as in Malayalam.
Wonderful. So we come to the last slide.
Oh, thank you. This
Yes.
is very important for me. This is, I am showing you Professor Martin Polyakov. Martin Polyakov has 200 YouTubes about every element from hydrogen to organison, the 118th element. And every student at the graduate level or undergraduate level would have studied Martin Polyakov. So when Professor Sivadas and myself wrote a book, We Are 118, the autobiographical stories of the 118 elements, I took it to Professor Martin at the Royal Society of London and requested him to release the book. So this is the release of our book at the Royal Society of London by Martin Polyakov. And why Martin Polyakov? There is a beautiful story about Martin Polyakov. You can see his silvery hair. One strand was taken by a scientist, and the entire periodic table was engraved in a single strand of hair and preserved as a curiosity. So I found poetic justice in a communion of several scientific facts together, and I was immensely delighted and thrilled to meet him and talk to him. And he is called the Green Chemist today, and we discussed the chemical engineering aspects of the periodic table, and that was a memorable occasion in my professional life. Therefore, I am sharing it with you, and we continue to teach the periodic table in the classrooms.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaraman. It's been an awesome session here. It's like, why did I not take up science? Why did I take up commerce? And why did I end up being a storyteller? So somewhere I am connected to science and storytelling, and it gives me great joy to bring that science element in a story and then make it engaging and enjoyable for the listener. Dr. Jayaraman, it's been a pleasure to host you on Storytellers Cafe. On behalf of Bharat FM, I thank you, sir. We are indeed privileged. And to all my listeners, this episode of Dr. Jayaraman's On Storytellers Cafe will be there in our archives. If you happen to miss it on the 17th of April, don't despair. You can go to the Facebook page of Bharat FM, and this will be there in the archives, this episode, and also on YouTube under Storytellers Cafe with Dr. Jayaraman, A.P. Jayaraman. So please feel free to share, enjoy, and imbibe the stories and put it into practice, some of them, because like the royal poop and everything, Dr. Jayaraman's made it uh, a very interactive session which can be used in the classroom. And definitely, Dr. Jayaraman, this is going to all the teachers that I know, all the coordinators and the principals, and I will share the link, and I hope most of you can enjoy watching this. Do share your comments and drop in your words, whatever your feedback. We love to hear from you. Anything else, Dr. Jayaraman, before we close the show?
Thank you, Ushaji, for this delightful experience for me. My only statement is no matter what subjects we have studied in the college, build up your science capital. Be a science capital. At any time you can start in life. Build up your science capital. You will enjoy your life more. That's all the message from students to everybody. Build up your science capital. Your life will be lovely.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaraman.
Thank you so much, Ushaji.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.